Hello, everyone. This webinar will be recorded. I'm going to start the recording now. Good evening. We appreciate you attending tonight's webinar. My name is Tim Wallace, and I am the Continuing Education Online Coordinator. I'll be in the background if you have any questions. We will have a question and answer session at the end, but also feel free to raise your hand or put questions in the chat. I'll now turn this over to Marna, who's our Continuing Education Adjunct Coordinator.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Marta Sheresh, and I'm the coordinator for adjunct faculty and instruction in continuing education. So I am the one sending out the newsletter, these invitations, and if you have any questions about anything even beyond this particular topic that we are discussing today, I am your contact. I will put my contact information in the chat so you guys have it. Okay, 7:01, let's jump in. And I am very happy to introduce Carolyn Doll, our payroll specialist and the expert of everything related to CE adjunct faculty contract. She has been with CCBC since 2012. So her expertise and knowledge is greatly appreciated. And I will hand it over to her.
Great, very good. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. So I want to thank everyone for registering for this session. I hope that you ask questions as we go through this segment. But the topic is understanding and acknowledging your adjunct faculty contracts. So in order to understand how a contract is paid, and a contract is equivalent to a course with a CRN number, a 5-digit number, and there's certain components that you need to log into to review. And the first one is your CCBC email. All employees have a CCBC email. So if you're not familiar with that, at the end of the presentation, there is a step-by-step procedure for you to obtain your username and set up your password, and then you will be able to access your email. Secondly, you are going to log in to a system known as Simon, and then within Simon, you're going to access FLAC, which is actually where you're going to acknowledge your contract. And I'll talk about in a little bit further what acknowledging means. In addition is a payroll schedule. We have a payroll schedule that have specific dates that you can tell when you will be paid per contract and how many pays are within that contract pay period. Contracts are paid out in equal payments. So it does not matter how many days are in a month. It's from the begin date to the end date. It's divided up equally, and that's how a contract is paid. And then we're going to talk about if you have questions about your pay or your contract, who do you call for questions? And then lastly is, pardon me, to explain the difference between our office, adjunct faculty contracts, and payroll. So lots of information is distributed via email, and one of those items is your pay stub. Payroll sends out every Friday on the payday your pay stub. So here are the procedures to click on the CCBC website, and it steps through the process in logging into your email. So I am going to minimize this and take you. So you will get a copy of this presentation, but there's two ways that you can log into your email. So we're going to do both ways. You click Info for, And then you scroll down under Info for and select Faculty and Staff. And then under Resources is select Online Resources. And then the Daily Post. And then as we scroll down underneath Staff Faculty Links is Outlook. Now, it automatically logs me in because I was in my email a little while ago. There is another step that makes it a little bit easier if anyone has ever logged into my CCBC. You select that from the CCBC homepage. And then I'm logged in. If you're not logged in, it will prompt you to log in with your username and password. And then this says student email, but if you click on it, it's your email. So that is a shortcut that you could use. Okay. So payroll sends the email every Friday. You're going to log in with your username and password. It's sent out every 2 weeks. And when you receive the email, it will look like this example on the screen. There will be an attachment that you double click, and it is password protected. So the password is going to be the first 4 letters of your last name and the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. And then you will see your pay stub. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, good. So the next step is to access Simon or log into Simon and access FLAC. And this is where you are going to view and acknowledge your contracts. So Simon is used by employees as well as students for various purposes. So you can access Simon and do a password recovery setup so that if you've never logged in before, you can use that as a feature. Update personal information. And then for us to acknowledge contracts, faculty load and compensation, that's what FLAC stands for, and you're going to view and acknowledge your contracts. And then these are the procedures to log in. I'm going to drop that down. So if you go back to the My CCBC, here's the link for Simon. You can click on that and go right in. So once you're logged into Simon, you will see this first screen, Welcome to Simon. You're going to select Employees. And then the next screen will be Faculty Load and Compensation. And then the last step to acknowledge is to go into the Compensation and Acknowledgement tab. So down below here is an example of what you will see when you access compensation and acknowledgement. So since you're logged into Simon with your name and ID number, your name will appear here, just as mine does. And it's broken down, the contracts are broken down by terms. So
Carolyn,
yes.
we got a message that please zoom in. We can't see. I'm not sure if it's able to adjust it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So I apologize for the screen for being small. However, I am going to go into a live version and demonstrating acknowledging contracts so you'll be able to see. So you'll see your name, your ID number, and the term. So the terms run from July 1st of the previous year. The term that we're in right now is 2026-70, and it ends coming up on June 30th. And then our new term starts July 1st of this year, and it runs through June 30th of next year. So depending upon when your class starts determines the term that you're going to look in to acknowledge. So as an example, we're going to use 2026-70. We would select Go, and then you're going to access the contracts that were created for you by the CRN number or the 5-digit number, and an example would be 76450. There's also some adjunct faculty who teach private lessons. That would be under a non-instructional contract, or if you attend meetings or trainings, it would be under extra work. So you would see all of them in the listing for your contracts. So this is an example of a contract. So the contract number, the CRN that it's listed for, the total amount of the contract, and then this is a clickable link to show additional contract detail. So acknowledging a contract is simply going in, looking at the contract, and I'm going to show you how to acknowledge it. Acknowledging a contract is not required. However, it is helpful for you to view and stay current on the contracts that are created for you. So all of your contracts in adjunct faculty contracts, we enter your contract, and then your coordinator or your supervisor is responsible for locking your contract. If you see this type of screen that comes up that the job is not available, that simply means that your supervisor has not locked the contract yet. So you can try again at a later date. And if you're worried about it not being locked, then you can always reach out to your coordinator. So I'm going to drop this down and show you the live version of acknowledging. I'm going to go in. The two bottom ones you do not want to select. You always want to go into Simon Production, or on that My CCBC page, it is taking you directly to Simon. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go in here. Since I'm not an instructor, I set myself up as an instructor. So we're at Simon. You want to select Employees, and then Faculty Load and Compensation. And then Compensation and Acknowledgement. So again, you can see my name, my ID number, and if I select the drop down, it's only one term. So I only have contracts in 2026-70. And then you select Go. Now, as you can see, here is one contract. This one's not locked. There's another one that I have not acknowledged it yet. And here, this one has been acknowledged and even shows the acknowledgement date. So let's go up and take a look at the first contract. It is acknowledged, and the date, the CRN number, the contract number, the total contract amount. If I click this, it's going to show that I have teaching hours at the top, and then I have incremental hours for setting up and breaking down the equipment for this particular class. So then those two totals are added. So for some reason, there is no way to back out of this. So I'm going to go right back in. So this one has been acknowledged. I'm
sorry to interrupt. There was another question. Said, why do we need to acknowledge and how do we match it up?
Okay. Why do you have to acknowledge? It really depends upon what your coordinator is sending to you for you to know the course number, the contract amount, and any other details. It's not required to acknowledge your contract, but as you will see as I go further into this presentation, you will be able to determine how much you will be paid, how often you will be paid for a contract. Unfortunately, our system does not explain when it takes the total of 537.16 how many pays you will receive for this contract. So again, it's not required to acknowledge, but as you'll see as we go forward, that you can actually figure out your pay dates, how many pays, and how much you will be paid per contract. Does that answer your question? Okay.
The mics are enabled, guys, so if anybody wants to jump in, please feel free. There was also the how do we match it up?
I need to understand what we mean by match it up.
Lisa, do you want to jump in and expand on that question?
Well, from my understanding, the coordinators are providing you the course number, the start date of class, the end date of class, and hopefully how much the contract will be. So the CRN numbers is what students register for, and that's how we enter your contract by, is the CRN number. And that is the best way to match up what the coordinator is providing to you versus what you are seeing in FLAC. And then also the course title, BOA 605 Forklift Operator Training. From what I understand, many coordinators, everyone provides different information depending upon the department they're in. So I don't believe that there is a definite response on what coordinators are providing to their instructors. And if you see that you're not being given the CRN number or the total contract amount, you may want to email your coordinator and request that information. All right, so let's go further. This one is not locked yet, so we can't see any detail. This next one, the CRN number, the contract number, and then it's a CPR child first aid, and there's the total amount. So if I click on this link, it's basically the workload times the rate equaling the contract. I go back out and go back in. So to acknowledge your contract, you're going to click in this box, scroll down to the bottom, and acknowledge selected positions. It says that it was saved, and we're going to go back up. And today's 5/27, and I've acknowledged that contract. So all of my contracts have been acknowledged. Okay.
I have another message.
Yes.
Does it show the gross compensation?
The gross compensation is this amount. That's the total gross payment for this class. This is the total gross for the CPR class. And this forklift operator training is this amount. That's the total. So once you've acknowledged selected positions, then you've saved and you can scroll through and make sure that they're all acknowledged. And then the next step is to sign out. So at the top of your screen, there's a little person icon. You select that and sign out. Okay, so we know how much we're going to be paid by the CRN or the course number. The next step is to understand the payroll schedule, and I'm hoping that you all receive the payroll schedule from your coordinator. If not, we can get that to you, or you can ask your coordinator. Again, the current term, 2026-70, will be ending June 30th. And then the new one starts July 1st. Now, we do not have an updated copy. There is a meeting with the board on June 8th, I think, and then the schedule will be available.
There was a follow-up to the question. And is there a place where we can see the tax withholding?
That would be on your pay stub when you go into your email. So the pay stub will have everything broken down as far as the deductions, anything else that's coming out. If you have extra money coming out, all of that will be on your emailed copy that's sent to you by payroll. All right, so the payroll schedule, it's important to know and understand the headings. Pay begin date, pay end date, check date is the date in which you will be paid, and the pay number is just the sequential pay number that's assigned or that you're going to calculate how much you're being paid and how often. So your start date of your class corresponds with the pay begin date. The last date of class corresponds with the pay end date. And if you're not certain when your last day of class will be, please contact your coordinator. That information should be provided. And then whatever the total amount of the contract will be divided evenly by the number of pays. So let's go to an example. Here's the schedule, or the payroll schedule. So, first day of class is July 15th. So now we need to figure out what the pay begin date is. So what you're doing is looking through the schedule to find where 7/15 falls on a pay period. So actually it's going to fall between 7/11 and 7/24. So your pay begin date will be 7/11. So you're going to find the pay begin date by finding the first pay begin on the payroll schedule that occurs before or on the start date of class. So the pay begin date will be 7/11. The last day of class is September 1st. So that will be the pay end date. So to find the pay end date, you're going to look at the last day of class that occurs on or after the last day of class. So it will fall in between 8/22 and September 4th. So September 4th will be your pay end date. That does not mean that you will be paid as you look across the schedule. If your pay begin date starts on 7/11, your first pay, depending upon the number of pays, will begin on 7/31. So now we have our pay begin and our pay end date. You're going to count the number of lines or check dates that will encompass the number of pays. So 7/31, 8/14, 8/28, and 9/11 will be the pay dates for this particular contract. The total contract amount is $4,300. So we've determined the number of pays. So you're going to divide the total contract, 4,300 divided by 4, and you will receive $1,075 gross pay on these pay dates. Oops. I know it sounds like a lot, but the more you do this and the more you will become familiar with just finding the first day of class in between a pay period and recording that as your pay begin, and then finding the last day of class between a pay period and recording that as your pay end date. So let's do another example. First day of class is February 20th. I'm going to scroll down and see that February 20th is actually here. So the pay begin date will be February 7th. Your last day of class is April 28th. So we're going to look down and find where April 28th falls in between, and it will be this line. So your pay end date is May 1st. Your total contract is $4,200, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are your pay dates. Sorry, I keep hitting the button. So you're going to divide $4,200 by 6, and it's $700 gross per pay for this contract on these dates. The last one, I think, is the easiest one. First day of class is May 16th. So we're going to look for 5/16, which is actually a pay begin date. So this is a 2-day course. The last day is the 17th. So it's going to fall within this pay period. So the pay end date is 5/29. Your contract total amount is $1,000. One paycheck on June 5th. And that's $1,000 gross. Are there any questions regarding how to determine your pay begin, your pay end date, and figuring out how much per pay and how many pays there are within a contract? Okay. So if you have questions about your contract, who do you call? The first thing you want to do is make sure that you're checking your email on Friday, payday, and retrieve the email from payroll. And you can put in your password and review your pay stub. Previously, we received the email on Thursdays, but we're receiving it on the same day that the bank deposits go in on Friday. Your first point of contact for any pay-related question or contract is your coordinator. Your coordinator is responsible for scheduling your classes, assigning you to the class, and then locking your contract for payment. So if a class adds dates or removes dates or whatever the case may be, your coordinator is the only one that's going to have that information unless it's sent on to our department. But if you have any questions at all, always reach out to your coordinator. Second point of contact is our office. We are the ones that receive the documentation to input your contract we assign the pay begin and pay end dates and the number of pays for all CRN classes, any classes where students register, and also the non-instructional requests for attending meetings or training, we enter those as well. So if you do have a question, the best way to get a hold of us is through our mailbox, and the mailbox is monitored Monday through Friday during business hours.
Carolyn, there was a question if it's the site coordinator that you meant.
If it's a CCBC coordinator, then I believe so. I'm not really sure how each department works. It may be the site coordinator. If you're not sure, then you can always send us an email. But you should have a supervisor or coordinator that's in contact with you, sending you emails. And I know some adjunct faculty use their personal email. However, you're receiving the information for the courses, when they start, and how much your contract will be. That's who you need to contact.
There was also a question about direct deposit, and I dropped the link to the form in the chat, and those go to payroll.
It does go to payroll, and I'll show you another form that payroll handles. Direct deposits go to payroll, and let me go to this next screen. The difference between the two offices.
And payroll is one of those departments, I will drop their email address in the chat as well, who might not answer you if you are not emailing from a CCBC email.
Correct.
So if you're reaching out to you payroll, please use your CCBC email address. And there is the email for payroll.
Yeah. So payroll, typically, I think the thought is there's something wrong with my pay. I've got to call payroll, which payroll cannot see contract details. They cannot see when a contract starts paying. If you give them a CRN, they're going to have no idea what you're talking about. They're not going to know how many pays are in a contract. That's something that your coordinator or adjunct faculty will know. What payroll can see are the funds that are due to be paid out, but not the monies broken down by the CRNs or the non-instructional contracts. So most often, if an adjunct faculty were to reach out to payroll, payroll sends my office an email, and then we figure out what the issue is. Oftentimes, we contact the coordinator, your supervisor. So payroll can be reached, and here's the email also, only from your CCBC email. So if you sent an email from your personal email, they will not respond. So it has to be from CCBC. So an example of another way or a reason to contact payroll is, let's say you change your address or your last name changes. There is a personal information form known as a PIF in the Daily Post under Forms, and you complete the PIF electronically and send that to payroll, and then they will make the changes in the system for you. Direct deposit also goes to payroll. Okay, so let's conclude with what we've discussed. So make sure you're checking your email for your pay stub, and you're going to utilize the payroll schedule. On payday, you'll see that check date on the schedule, and that's when you know to go in and look at for your email. Follow along with the payroll schedule to determine when you will be paid. Acknowledge your contracts. As soon as we have the 2027 payroll schedule, it will be distributed to all coordinators, and hopefully they will distribute that to all adjunct faculty. Reach out to your coordinator on payday if you have any questions. And then you can also send us an email for any inquiries, or if you have questions or you want to see, we can run reports between a certain begin time and end time that will show all your contracts, total amount, and other information that will be helpful for you to see.
We have a question about Simon and how do we log in for Simon. And this was covered earlier in the presentation, and I will be sending out the slides that you see here to everybody who registered. So the slide is coming with the additional details of how to log into Simon. But if any of you need help with setting up your email, logging onto your email or Simon, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'm happy to jump on a call with you and walk you through with all these different logins and system, because I know it can be confusing. I'm fairly new and still figuring out like what is what. So I will drop my email there. Email me and we will jump on a call and help you guys log in and set up whatever you need to.
Okay, great. So there's some additional job aids, and these are clickable links that you will access. This particular one goes back over how our adjunct faculty contracts paid, talks about the pay schedule. So this will be included in the definitions and what it means and paycheck dates, the email that you'll receive, figuring out the contracts, and so forth. The next one goes through the acknowledgement, so it does walk you through the process of signing into SharePoint, accessing Simon. So this is a quick way for you just to follow these steps in logging into Simon, selecting employee, faculty load and compensation, so forth. Now, the one thing I did want to show you on how adjunct faculty are paid, this particular page I think would be helpful. We talked about first day of class and then determining the pay begin date, the last day of class determining the pay end date, and then between those finding out the number of pays, writing in your total contract amount from acknowledging your contracts, recording the separate pay dates, and then your gross amount per pay. So you can always print this and use this as a guide for keeping track of your contracts and when you will be paid. And then this last one is if you've never logged into your email or Simon or just need help, in addition to contacting Marta, this retrieving your log information, this will take you step by step through setting everything up. I know this was a lot of information, and I'm sure many of you may be seeing this information for the first time. Feel free to reach out to us in adjunct faculty, reach out to your coordinator. The more you access your email and check your pay stub and acknowledge contracts, the easier it will become. And then you will know how much you're being paid for each contract that you've been assigned to.
Thank you, Carolyn, for the presentation. I will hang out here for a little longer, just in case somebody has questions, but thank you to everybody who came and spent their Wednesday evening with us, and I hope you guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.